We've got Angels top prospects here on the call up. You got Arm Layton, Jack McMullen, and a farm system here that I think we were dreading a little bit more. I think dreading's probably the wrong word. Weren't as excited for as maybe some of the others. But as I was updating this system, I kept reminding you, I'm like, hey, this isn't as much of a drag as you think it's going to be. And I stand by that. I think this system, look, it's on the lower end of the spectrum here, where we talk about farm system rankings and all that good stuff. But I can actually see the path here. I can see the arms that they're starting to stockpile, and they take a unique approach to the draft. That's for sure. I think there's a lot of things that I will make fun of the Angels for, but their approach to the draft isn't necessarily one of them. It's maybe how they handle some of those players after the draft. But I don't. I look at recent drafts. I really don't hate what they've done. Not only in the first round, but you look at the way they like allocate money to sign some high school arms. They always like to try to overslot some later round high school guys, sign them away from college. They've done that several times here, and we're going to talk about some of those arms. And then they've got some intriguing IFA guys. So have I sold you in our last couple conversations on a little bit more Angels excitement?
Not necessarily, but I look forward to you walking through everybody else and trying to, I don't know, further the sell job. But unfortunately, the Angels have dug themselves a pretty deep hole. I understand what you're saying, though. I mean, they stockpile arms. It's really impressive what they do.
It's just, how can you develop those arms? Do you decide to debut them in the big leagues and then send them back down to high A, or do you actually go step by step with these guys and build onto their arsenal and allow them to develop, which they're doing with like Trey Gregory-Alford, who we'll talk about, but they didn't do with like a Ryan Johnson, who's now a starting pitching prospect again. So we're going to talk about all that and kind of where some of these guys are at, and we might as well just start right away with the names to watch. And Sammy Natera, it's funny, if you remember, if you're dialed into the call up, you know that we've been Sammy Natera guys since I saw him in the Arizona Fall League. It's been a bit of a disappointing year for Natera, just from the perspective of executing well enough to be able to make that big league debut this year. Because I think that was something that I thought could be in the cards when I saw the stuff last year. In terms of the stuff, it's still as advertised, right? I mean, he's punching out 34% of batters between AA and AAA. The fastball is 95 miles an hour with some deception. The slider's nasty, but it's a 60% strike rate here. He's walking 17% of batters, and it's just going to be hard to have success that way. I still think he can be a good big league reliever. He's just going to need to find the strike zone a little bit more.
I will never forget him being first team all Fall League, and you saying like this might be one of the best pitchers that we see in the Fall League. I understand why you were saying it though, but like at the end of the day, to your point, you got to throw strikes. I don't have the toothpick in right now, but you got to throw strikes.
It don't matter how fast you throw a ball for, right?
Yep.
But that said, he could absolutely be a big league reliever, and he's still showing that. You strike out 30+% of batters in the upper minors, you're going to get plenty of opportunity to try to figure out how to throw strikes. And you've thrown more strikes before. Matthew Lugo, acquired in that trade for Luis Garcia, which I still get praise the Angels. That was a masterclass trade. Getting 4 players for Luis Garcia. How about that? Matthew Lugo, probably more of a utility bench piece, but that said, he's blossomed into a guy that looks like he can fill that role. He's played all 3 outfield spots since joining the Angels org. I think it's more of a corner outfield profile, but the fact that in an emergency, break glass for emergency, you can throw him out there, that works. It's a power over hit profile. I think ultimately could hit maybe the short platoon, but regardless, a guy that I think could absolutely fill a big league role, and we've seen him do that. He's gotten up to the big leagues for little spurts there, and just seems like a decent bench piece potentially at 24 years old.
If it feels like for me, it feels like Matthew Lugo for Luis Garcia straight up was a near win for LA. So the fact that you got 3 more to just
I think they got
play with
Zephyr
house
John
money,
too.
That's a huge win.
Huge win. Shout out Perry Manassian on that deal. Dylan Jordan is the next name. He's a funky right-hander. It was fun kind of watching him throw. And this is another one of those, I think, big investments. They gave him $1.25 million to sign him away from Florida State in 2024. And this is what they like to do, right? They'll save some money and then they'll go big a little bit later on some prep arms that I think most teams thought will probably end up going to college, and they sign them away. Jordan's turned in good results this year overall in his age 19 season. The fastball average is about 93. He needs to find the zone a little bit more consistently, but for a guy in his age 19 season with a pretty funky delivery, it's fun to watch. I think his last outing of the season was one of the more wild stat lines I've seen. He threw a playoff game for Inland Empire a couple days ago. 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 6 walks, 1 K. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that, but still intriguing enough. Slider looks like he can be pretty good. And again, there's some funk there that I think ultimately probably puts him in a high probability reliever situation, but he could be fastball slider as a reliever from that like 3/4 kind of low arm slot.
Yeah.
Joel Hurtado, right-hander in Double-A. It's a pretty good identification here too. I mean, $10,000 in 2022 he signed for in the international free agent ranks. He hit a bit of a wall in 2024, walked 82 batters in 138 2/3 innings, but it's been a much better year for him in 2025, where you're seeing him look way more effective. He's halved his walk rate in Double-A, and on top of that, you're just seeing him look a lot more like a pitcher in general. 24 years old, so a little bit on the older side, but a lot of quality starts this year. And the fastball's ticked up to, through several outings this year, is average 97. On the year, it's averaging 96, just about 95.8 miles per hour on the fastball. The slider has come along as an above average pitch, and all of a sudden, just looks like at the very least, he could be a depth arm swingman type, but with the emergence that he has, kind of made this year, looks like he has an outside shot to be a back into the rotation starter, could grab a 5 spot in rotation. Obviously on the older side, doesn't strike out a ton of guys, but gets ground balls, has kept the ball in the yard, and overall pitched to pretty good numbers this year. Looking at the cumulative ERA, 2.70 ERA in 86 2/3 innings.
Anytime I can say somebody's doing the poor man's Brian Wu, I feel pretty good about that. The mid-90s four-seamer and the mid-90s sinker. That's an interesting thing for me because, you can get away with probably 65% fastball usage if you have 2 distinct fastballs like that. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. If the shapes are distinct, and you're locating it, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then he's got the splitter that's come along this year big time. Opponents have a 430 OPS against that. So it seems like everything is working to get ground balls. So he could kind of just be that pitch to contact, get ground balls guy. And that works when you're walking 7% of batters instead of 14.
Yep.
CJ Gray, another right-hander that was a 2-sport athlete. This was a pre-draft report from Tyler Jennings. I haven't gotten a look at him really much yet at all, but this is just another one of those sneaky signings here by the Angels out of the draft. And he was a really athletic arm. So I know that Tyler really liked what he saw in one of the tournaments, in the summer circuit. And I know that ended up resulting in him kind of getting bumped up a decent bit on his draft board. But fastball can get up to 97, sits in the mid-90s with some carry, and then decent feel to spin it. So 2-plane curveball and a low 80s changeup. It's a pitch mix that I think you got to be pretty excited about. And I'm waiting for this to really work for the Angels because I like the approach. I think Caden Dana has been of late the best example of a little bit later rounds, bigger money, sign a guy away, and realize that upside. Dana hasn't totally done that yet, but at least you see a very obvious big league arm there one way or another. Looks like Gray could be another one of those examples.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, got to see him play. Juan Flores, this is a high probability backup catcher. High A, glove first, signed for $280,000 in 2023. I don't think there's a ton there offensively. I will say I did actually dive deep into the defensive video here just because I wanted to see everything I was reading and it just everybody's talking about the glove since he was an international free agent. So I'm like, all right, let's see this thing. He can really defend back there. He's got a quick transfer, strong arm, man. It is a rocket down to second base. And I just think on that alone, he's going to be able to be a backup catcher because I think there's just enough for him there offensively. But of course, you can dream on offensive breakout, late bloomer there, and maybe he plays his way into being a second division regular, primary catcher. But we shall see.
It is funny, real quick. 19-year-old in high A hits 10 homers, but still only has a 624 OPS
Jeez.
this year. Juan Flores hit 207, walked 18 times in 89 games. The punch outs were there, got on base at a 283 clip. Like it's not good offensively on paper, but defensively that can carry you to a backup catcher role.
Yeah, just run into 15 homers and 15 homer power and defend like heck, receive really well. We're not going to mention, we can't do Hedges 3 episodes in a row, but shout out Austin Hedges. Samuel Aldegari wraps up the names to watch. And I believe we just talked about, he just got promoted to AAA.
Yeah.
Enjoying a nice little stretch here. Again, we just talked about him a couple episodes ago, if not the last episode. But finally seeing that fastball tick back up to the 92, 93 range over the last few starts. And I think that's made a huge difference, as we talked about. Pretty solid first AAA start as well of the season, where he went 5 innings just the other day, 5 innings, 3 runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks, which, in the PCL, you'll take that most days. You look at his last, it's actually a really nice stretch for him. You look at his last 9 starts between AA and that one AAA start, a 2.43 ERA. He has struck out 19% of batters, walking 6.6%. But at the end of the day, it's you're hoping for the ability to miss enough bats and just get enough weak contact to be a 5 starter, because he sneaky is 24 years old now as well. So probably just more of a depth arm.
Yeah.
Top 15 time. Barrett Kent, 8th rounder in 2023, right-hander. That's some interesting stuff. And it's funny, after we published this list, I watched another Barrett Kent start, and I kind of wanted to bump him a little bit higher, but I was like, it's okay. I don't think it matters too much. I don't need to upend this too much. But at 20 years old, fastball is averaging 94. The command got better as the year progressed, and then he's got a pretty decent feel to spin it. Slider, I think, is the pitch that really stands out between that and the curveball, and the slider played really well this year. Overall, I think they were somewhat careful with the innings. He's been pretty banged up. He didn't get onto the mound until, I believe, in a rehab setting until June 19th, and then in a game setting until July 19th. So repeated low A there, but there's been some good stretches from him. He looks like a guy that, could be a pretty fun arm to monitor, but it is just all about health and maintaining that velocity, because we've seen him sit in the mid 90s, but it's about just holding that. Probably a reliever, but if it's above average fastball and plus slider, it could be a solid reliever for you.
It seems like it's health and command are the 2 questions, right? But obviously command could be health related this year.
Exactly.
He's a big guy. He's 6'4", 215, and he does move pretty well down the mound too. So it's interesting to see that could project into something strong, but you got to see him throw 60 innings over the course of a minor league season instead of 30. And you got to not see him walk 21 guys in 35 innings.
Yeah, and that's why I think ultimately probably a reliever outlook for him. 14, Talon Haley. And this is a really unique story. And as this is if you're looking at the write-ups, this is a pre-draft write-up from Tyler Jennings as well. And, I love how he starts. Haley's story is all about perseverance, and he has persevered a lot. The whole story, I'll make sure we pull it up, and because I don't want to miss any components to it, but pretty amazing to get to where he has gotten, and especially with injuries, and I know more that he has overcome. But 12th round pick in 2025. This is another one of those where we'll see, does it work here over slot to sign him away outside of the 10, the first 10 rounds there. He's older for the draft class, and I think that's part of the reason why he may have slipped a little bit. On top of, just maybe not being as visible as some of the other pitchers, in the high school class, but there's a chance for above average heater from the left side. It's a good projectable frame, a plus curveball, and a changeup that at least flashes average. The command needs to come along a little bit further, but you have a chance for a quality 3-pitch mix here from a lefty.
Yeah, I'm reading this right now. This is crazy, this backstory. Talon Haley was committed to Vanderbilt. In 8th grade, he had a bone abnormality in which a piece of a growth plate pierced the UCL. This is from Anthony Kastrovitz on MLB.com. A piece of a growth plate actually like pinched into the UCL in his throwing elbow. So to address the bone in the surgery, they had to tear the UCL. So they had to conduct Tommy John surgery to take care of this bone fragment, this like enlarged growth plate in his elbow. And then also, by the way, it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it was 19 rounds of radiation, 21 rounds of chemo. That is unbelievable for a high school kid to have to go through that and chemotherapy to address Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah, I that's why I wanted to make sure we pulled it up exactly, because I just remember it being such a unique story. And I mean, it really is all about perseverance, right? And mind you, this is still a really talented arm, but you wonder how much more is in there as he just develops and is able to get away from, the injuries and radiation and all the things that he had to go through. So I think when you're looking at just the pitcher, I know that Tyler Jennings, our head of amateur scouting, really, really likes what he can do on the mound. And then you look at a 6'2" lefty, 200 pounds. I think you also, great chance that he's going to have a pretty advanced perspective as he enters pro ball. Because I think for high school guys, a lot of times there's some learning and new perspective that needs to be had as you make that adjustment. I think Haley's going to be a little bit more prepared for the adversity that comes into pro ball. I think it's going to be a drop in the bucket for this kid compared to what he has already overcome. So I'm really excited for him. And this is a guy that I will be checking in on and just rooting for, point blank.
And let me add one more to this fold. I just kept on reading this article from Anthony Kastrovitz, and it's amazing, at MLB.com. So full Tommy John surgery because they had to tear the UCL to address the bone fragment. Hodgkin's lymphoma, 21 rounds of chemo, 19 of radiation. And then there was a setback in his elbow recovery, so they had to go with the internal brace procedure for a partial UCL tear. So that's 2 UCL reconstructions and Hodgkin's lymphoma in his high school career.
Yeah. I mean, how do you not root for this kid? So I'm excited.
This kid.
And then again, it could be above average heater and a plus curveball. So sign me up from the left side. Another left-hander that they grabbed in this draft, Johnny Slawinski III. 3rd round pick, 79th overall. And this is another guy that I don't think the stuff is crazy yet, but there's a lot of intrigue just with the pitchability and just the deep bag of offerings, right? It's a fastball that looks like it could be average, maybe slightly above if you can tick up a little bit more, but there's some good life that allows it to play up beyond the 89 to 92 that it mostly sits. Then slider flashes average. His best pitch is a changeup that's above average as well, and then still trying to kind of find that taste-breaking curveball. But it's always so hard to put pitch grades on, young prep arms like this, especially the lefty, pitchability guys compared to their peers. So it's kind of a wait and see thing, but clearly they don't just want to stockpile arms that they feel like they can build up on. And that's exactly what, Slawinski III is here.
Got nothing to add.
You might have a little bit on this guy. I know you've seen him throw. Number 12. This is the other approach that the Angels like, right? They're going to pair some of those high school arms with those college relievers who throw fuzz. Now, of late, as we've seen, some of those college relievers who throw fuzz have been transitioned into starters roles. I don't know if they're going to do that with Chase Shores, but I do know that Chase Shores has a great chance to be, a big league reliever. And they love their hard throwing college relievers. Won a natty at LSU. Guy throws the living crap out of the ball. He battled some injuries, but the further he was removed from the 2023 Tommy John surgery that he had, you started to see him just throw more freely, throw harder, and throw more strikes. Over his final 10 appearances, he averaged 100 miles per hour on the fastball. So he literally ticked up as the season progressed. And then you have a 6'8" pitcher releasing from a 5'3" release height. So that dynamic is also unique. He's going to need to find something he can spin a little bit better, but he can also go 70% fastball at that velocity with those characteristics and have plenty of success.
So I was having a conversation right before the draft with Ben McDonald because we were in Baltimore, And Ben McDonald was obviously doing color on the Orioles telecast. And Ben McDonald, before Paul Skeens, was the best pitcher that the SEC had ever seen and was a number 1 overall pick at LSU. And obviously, he does a ton of great college baseball stuff. And I asked him about his Tigers, and he said, man, have you seen this kid Shores pitch? And I was like, yeah. And he said, that's high-octane stuff, man. Like, everything about this guy screams high-octane shit. And the fact that he fell to the Angels here, I wouldn't call it falling because there were enough flaws in the season to push him to the second round. But the Angels have somebody that, like, you close your eyes ever so slightly, and you look into the future and you see Shores throwing the 8th and you see Joyce throwing the 9th, and you are just in love with what could become for the LA Angels.
Yeah, 100%. And a guy that you don't have to look too far down the line. You might see that next year with the way they like to do things. Now, Shores is going to need to throw more strikes, but again, it seems like something clicked. He walked 3 batters back to back on the 24th and on the 1st. It was May 24th and June 1st. And then he closed out the season where the stakes were the highest with 5 consecutive outings without walking a single batter, striking out 11, and the fastball average 99.6 in those final 5 outings. So something clicked for him there. I think you're hoping that that continues to translate. And then the big thing to monitor is just how does that slider play from that release? I think a sweeper from his low release point could play really well. And I'm sure he's going to, tinker and experiment with certain things, but he'll still be 21 years old at the start of next season as well. So I think there's still a lot to dream on and a lot to like here from Shores, who has a great chance to pitch at leverage. Number 11, Gabriel Davalillo. And we're updating all of the ALS teams right now. All of the ALS systems are updated except for the Rangers. And I'm doing the Rangers right now. Davalillo has a brother who is a great pitcher as well. Will be a top 10 prospect in the Rangers update.
Daniel, right? Daniel Davalillo?
Yeah. Great arm. And then their dad played professionally. So the bloodlines are there. And this kid's been really good this year. He's more bat first, right? So it's more offensive than defensive. We'll see what happens with the glove there. But a $2 million IFA guy in 2025. And they've been a little bit, I think, less aggressive with him because I think they may want to see if he can stick a catcher or, whatever it may be. But I definitely like the bat. And that was just my biggest takeaway. He's 17 years old, in the DSL, and I said, hey, let's let you play the whole year in the DSL here, which is great, I think, because I think next year he'll be in the complex. And if he shows some of the same stuff, you'll see them bump him up quickly. But while I do take the DSL data with a grain of salt because they see 55 to 60% fastballs at 90 to 91 miles an hour mostly, anytime you're running a 91% in zone contact rate as a 17-year-old with above average exit velocities, you're going to have my attention. And that's exactly what he did. So is there a lot of projection on the frame? No, he's 5'11", 210, but he's already posting, at least average to slightly above average exit velocities, especially for his age, it's above average. And when you pair that with great bat to ball, it makes the outlook really encouraging. The big thing though is, well, if he's playing first base, it's a little bit less sexy now. He needs to slug more. But if he's able to get by a catcher, that becomes a lot more exciting of a profile. Regardless, you have a guy that can definitely, put bat on ball here.
Interesting.
Number 10 is Trey Gregory-Alford. He throws gas. We'll get to him in a moment here, but before that, our first break.
Before we get to Trey Gregory-Alford, I want to tell you about our fine friends at ETHOS Life Insurance. You could be running all the way around here. You get ready for October, right? The school's back in session, and the stress levels are high. And you know what stress leads to? Stress leads to no, fuck. Absolutely not. Before we get to Trey Gregory-Alford, I do want to tell you about our friends at ETHOS Life Insurance. ETHOS has been such a trusted partner of the Just Baseball Show, and you should make ETHOS a part of your life to help ensure that you and your family will be protected in case anything happens to you. ETHOS is an online platform. They make getting life insurance fast and easy. They protect your family's future in minutes, not in months. There's no complicated process. It is 100% online. There's no medical exam required. All you got to do, answer a few health questions. Get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. You can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house. Life insurance is more affordable than you think. With ETHOS, you can get a free quote and customize a rate that fits your budget. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies as low as $2 a day, billed monthly. Protect your family with life insurance from ETHOS. Get your free quote at ethos.com/justbaseball. That's ethos, ethos.com/justbaseball.
Number 10 is Trey Gregory-Alford. This is another one of those examples. 11th round pick in 2024. They gave him second round money, $1.96 million to sign him away from Virginia. 6'5", 235-pound right-hander who throws fuzz. The thing with Gregory-Alford is there's not a ton right now beyond the fact that he throws fuzz. Great athlete on the mound too, but in terms of there's the arsenal, right? It's 70% fastball usage, and then just trying to find which of the secondaries is going to be the pitch that he can rely on. I think the slider's flashed above average, and the curveball and the changeup are just further off right now. Again, something could click in those pitch. You could find a split grip or whatever. So it's hard putting like definitive pitch grades on there. I just can go off of what I've seen so far. But this guy has a great chance of at least landing as a reliever. And he's touched 100 several times this year. The velo slipped a little bit as the season progressed, which is to be expected for a guy that was 18 years old at season start. But what I was most encouraged by is he was phenomenal overall. And, I think in the Arizona Complex League as he settled in, and then he got up to low A. And if you include the postseason appearance, actually it suits his case if you eliminate the postseason appearance. If you include his 6 starts at low A, pitched to a 1.42 ERA. Now he did in 25 and a thirds innings walk 13 and strike out just 20, but opponents hit 180 against him and slugged 202. So clearly really struggled to barrel him. I think some of that is just sheer velocity, but also it's kind of a heavy fastball that is resulting in a high ground ball rate, not a lot of damage. And I think this is just a template you're excited about given the size and the athleticism and the arm talent, but he's clearly a thrower right now and not a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that jumps out to me here in terms of the line for him, it was 53 innings in Arizona, in the complex in Arizona, very hitter-friendly environment when you get to those spring training complexes. And then you go to low A, you are in Inland Empire, California. That is inland California, and the ball is going to absolutely fly there. It's incredibly dry. And in 78 and 2/3, he faced 329 hitters, and only 2 took him deep. You mentioned the slug was kept in check. He wasn't allowing homers. So, listen, is walking the number of guys that he did okay in low A? No, not necessarily. He walked 13 and 25 and a third, but he's not going to get clipped. And a walk is not going to turn into a 2-run homer. It takes stockpiling singles against him. And that's good news for him. So it's just a matter of finding the strike zone. And that should give him more confidence to pound the strike zone consistently.
Yeah. And I think that's going to just come from, cleaning up the delivery. And I think that's the big part too. He's just out there kind of throwing, and the fact that he's doing that and turning in the results that he turned in. I'm excited to see, what a first real full pro off season looks like after, really throwing a full season, and then what he can maybe find arsenal wise to cut down on some of that fastball reliance. But you wonder, there could be more velocity in there. And especially if he moves to the bullpen, this is a guy that, and you're going to give him plenty of runway, but I'm just saying 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you decide to make that shift. Imagine what that fastball could be sitting in a couple of years in shorter spurts. He could be right around 100. So that's the great part is you have an exciting fallback here, but there's also plenty of upside to dream on and still kind of hope that he can carve out enough to land in a rotation. Number 9, Joswa Lugo. Lugo was a fun watch, and they're going to be, I think, a little bit more methodical with him because it's very much power over hit. But this is a guy that they paid a lot of money to sign in the 2024 class. And you look at the skill set, it's one that is very volatile. It's one that you're maybe concerned doesn't totally translate. It's one that could probably, in the worst case, stall out in the upper levels, but it's also a profile that could turn into a 25 plus home run bat at the highest level if it all works out. So it's interesting because the raw power is way more present than I think the home run total would imply. Was 2 homers in 35 games this year, but he had an EV 90 of 108 miles per hour. And I mean, some of the EVs that he was popping this year, for a kid that's 18 years old. I mean, I'm looking at it now. I know there was a couple 113s. Like the fact that he slugged 375 this year when he popped several 112, 113s is frustrating, but also at the same time, it's like, okay, well, how much more is in there? I think there's a lot. That said, he also struck out. I think he missed some time with injury. He hadn't played since July 2nd, but up until that point, struck out 26% of the time in 35 games at the Arizona Complex League. But it was a lot better, I think, than what we saw in the DSL. Way more power, improved bat to ball, but power in terms of the raw area. And then I just think the data in general looked better than what we saw in the DSL against better competition. The injury sucks because I think he could have been a candidate to really sprint through the finish line here. But this is still an intriguing power bat. Even if he doesn't stick it short, I think he has a chance to slide over to third and play solid defense there.
You get really excited because he's 6'3", 225, and the previous listing on his weight was 187 at time of signing. So over the course of 2 years, I mean, this guy has gained about 40 pounds, and it seems like it's good weight here. You got 6'3", 225. You got a unit moving like that, hitting the ball that hard. It's a matter of elevating and celebrating, and if that's the one thing that he's got to work on right now, damn, you feel really good about that. Obviously, there's defensive work to be put in here, but that's okay. That can also be a work in progress. This guy was born in 2007.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's getting worse seeing those years now. Like more and more things that I remember from those times, like very vividly now. That's like
the first 2010 baby I see is gonna be brutal.
That's gonna mess me up. Yeah, that's gonna mess me up. But the last thing on Lugo, I just say that like is the exact thing that I think when you have a farm system that maybe isn't as talented overall as some of the others, and you want to have variance. Variance is good. Of course, you want high floor guys as well, but when you're filling out a system, like you want to have some volatility because that volatility also implies high end outcomes too, and it's more of a roll of the dice. It's more of a gamble. But when you have a guy here that has potential for 60 power, that's a fun player to add to the fold, and he's still just 18 years old. And with the trend this year, and we're going to talk about it with a guy a little bit later, there have been some of the Angels IFA guys, bigger ticket guys that stalled out in their first couple of years that have hit their stride in year 3 or 4. And I think that's the hope with Lugo going into 2026, hopefully completely healthy there. Number 8, Chris Cortez. So it's funny. I thought Chris Cortez was going to be the guy that they fast-tracked as the big league reliever, and Johnson may end up, going more station to station as a starter. It was the opposite, and now they're both being station to station to start. They're actually in the same rotation in high A. But Johnson ended up getting up to the big leagues as a reliever. Cortez, they were really rocking with as a starter from the jump, and he's turned in good results. I still think he's a reliever. The command is just not great at all. But if you remember him at A&M, and this was a guy that was throwing absolute fuel, another guy that the velocity just ticked up later in the season. And you look at the stuff, I mean, the stuff is not a problem. It's a plus heater, it's a plus slider, and then a cutter that's a good bridge. I just think the pitch mix also implies reliever more. And then you look at the 16% walk rate, and I think that does the rest of the implication for me.
Yes. This guy punched out 102 in 64 2/3 last year. The thing that jumps out to me, reliever his freshman year, 44 innings pitched. Reliever his sophomore year, kind of swingman of sorts, 41 2/3 innings pitched. He also walked 40 in 41 2/3. He had a 7.3 ERA. And then he bounces back, nearly a full-time reliever. Long man, but in 64 2/3 innings, walked 37. So that means that his innings total in college across 3 years was 150 innings. And his high by 20 innings was 64 2/3. Do you have his innings total in front of you?
No.
114 innings this year.
Wow.
They bumped him from 64 to 114.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah, it's a lot of innings.
That climb is unbelievable.
especially for a hard thrower, like that. So are they going to keep pushing him as a starter? Like, we'll see. I don't know how I feel about it. And he kind of limped to the finish line. Like, the last 10 starts in high A, he had a 6.5 ERA. He walked 30 in 36 innings. So maybe some of that.
He might have been exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd imagine
he bested
so.
his previous inning total by 50.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty steep workload there. And but again, I like the stuff. I like the sinker slider combination. He gets a lot of ground balls, 63% ground ball rate this year. That slider was overwhelming for hitters. It's sharp with late bite. They hit 117 against it. I really think this guy fits well in a bullpen. But even then, like, he's got to throw more strikes than 58% if he's even going to be a leverage reliever. And over those final 10 starts, it was a 57% strike rate. So it's going to need to get better there, but definitely plenty of arm talent. Now, number 7's a guy that I think will be the high guys on right now. And it's Hayden Alvarez, a $685,000 international free agent signing in 2024. Alvarez had a really nice year, and a guy that I'm surprised is not getting more love in this system. He was barely 18 years old at the start of the season, had kind of a rough DSL debut. It was, I wouldn't say bad, it just wasn't very good. And then this year, I think really showed some encouraging things and hit his way off of the complex, earned himself a taste of low A. And in low A, it was more of impressive bat to ball skills. 20 games in low A, he hit 355, 459, 435. It's an 895 OPS. He walked more than he struck out. Now, he has a chance to be an average center fielder. I think more likely maybe moves to a corner and, can play solid defense in a corner. But what I'm most impressed with here is you had a guy that wasn't great in the DSL, clearly made a leap this year, still has some room for projection in his frame, and turned in a really good year overall with above average bat to ball, good plate discipline for his age, and some decent wheels. The power is very light, and I think that's going to be something to monitor here. Yeah. But he's got some time to fill out and add more, and he's, again, just 18 years old until March of next year.
I mean, dude, elite bat to ball in low A with Inland Empire, 20 games. He walked 8 times. Or he punched out 8 times. He walked 10 times. So it was a 355, 459 on base in his first 20 games in low A off the complex. So he was excellent. He was as encouraging a low A performer as we had over the final month of that season across all of baseball. So that's fascinating to me. How much more room is on the frame? I'd assume a lot, being at 6'2", 190, right?
I could, like, if I sent you a picture of him right now, you'd say, oh, question answered. Actually, I'm going to do that right now. You tell me, okay, as we're talking right now, open your phone. Because the only reason I'm doing this is because I think it's like, I want to see your reaction, actually.
Yeah.
Because I'm honestly really excited about him. I think because of where he's already at and the skill set, and then you look at the body, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I want your honest reaction to that question, because I think he fits the bill of, like, okay, yeah, there's a lot more room.
Yeah, this is totally like Andrew Wiggins at Kansas. It's like, let's get the buys and tries a little bit bigger here. Let's fill out.
Like, it's longer levers. That's what's so amazing to me, that he's able to make enough contact. Does he not look like a small forward?
100%. He totally does.
Yeah. So I mean, I love that. I think the fact that you can add some more strength here, and very clearly, and maybe it slows him down a little bit, and maybe that moves him to a corner. I think the offense is the priority here anyways, because if you pair that above average to potentially plus hit, above average plate discipline, to now even fringy power,
yeah,
you stick that guy in a corner where he's going to still move well enough to be an average at worst defender. That's a solid regular, without a doubt. Yeah. So I think this is probably the most underrated player in the system, as far as I'm concerned, because, we talk about, it's not one of the best systems in the league by any stretch. And I'm not seeing him in the top 10 anywhere. And that's just kind of surprising to me. So I think there's clearly room for another 15, 20 pounds. And if he adds that, maybe that power grade pushes up to 40 grade. He needs to get the ball in the air a little bit more. No, it's a 55% ground ball rate. But at the same time, like, we've seen him flash enough impact for a guy that was 18 years old for the entirety of the season. And I'm just excited to see what it looks like in his second taste of low A after the way he finished the season. The cumulative numbers between the complex and low A: 340, 431, 430 slash line. It's an 861 OPS, 13% walk rate, 16.5% K rate. That's going to play.
Big time.
We're going to get to the top 6 here in a moment. Before that, our last break.
Perfect.
Number 6, one-time closer, now starter in high A. Ryan Johnson checks in. Comp B-round pick in 2024, 74th overall, and started the year having to wear some long innings at the big league level, and then ultimately being sent back down to high A. A very rare path here, right? You make your big league debut, you make your professional debut in the big leagues, then get sent down to high A where he pitched the remainder of the season. Now, showed some really good things. We didn't see him throw after, I think it was August 29th, but finished the year with some really impressive outings, including a complete game, 12 strikeout, 1 hitter on July 5th, but then didn't throw for like a month and a half after that. And then we just saw him throw a couple innings in relief, and then that was it for the season. But overall, there's a lot to like here. I still think ultimately Lands is kind of a swingman reliever type. Very bizarre, but I think it works to his favor in terms of the delivery, where he just kind of whips the ball around from a very upright, just motion. But the cutter looks like it can be, a well above average pitch. The fastball isn't great, but it has some sink to it that allows it to be a ground ball, and there's some deception from that just whip around arm action. The slider looks like a plus pitch, and the command has been really good. I mean, you even include the big league debut. He only walked 4.8% of batters this year against a 28% strikeout rate.
Yeah, the expectations are pretty darn lofty because he was the comp pick for the Angels losing Shohei Ohtani in free agency. Yeah. So you better match that, Bubba.
Yeah.
It was a bizarre usage of him in the big leagues, and we're going to talk about another guy actually next that I also think was bizarre usage, and the Angels kind of like curbed this guy in a weird way, and it almost feels like his prospect value has been diminished because of how they used him in the big leagues, as weird as that sounds. But, like if this guy was doing the Cortez station-to-station thing, and if he spent the whole year in high A and then maybe a couple starts in double A, you would probably be viewing Ryan Johnson as an underrated pitching prospect in minor league baseball. And now it's like, oh, well, this guy stunk at the big league level. Look at his numbers up there. And now he's back in high A. What are the Angels doing? Classic Angels. He became a classic Angels punchline instead of a good starting pitching prospect.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's the best way to put it, because if he just went to high A and did what he did, a 1.88 ERA, 30% K rate, 4.5% walk rate.
Yeah.
So, wow, this guy could be a solid arm corpse, and he still can, right? I think that's the important thing. Can't really find anything about the workload and how they tempered it down and what the deal was there. But again, you saw some really good outings, and in those 12 starts or 12 appearances at high A, I think they all were starts. To pitch to a 1.88 and 57 1/3 innings with only 10 walks is really encouraging. I think it's still that swingman, maybe 5-starter type. The delivery is weird. And I think I'm not really a big fan at this point anymore of like speculating what deliveries are going to be more conducive to health and what aren't, because I continue to see the smoothest deliveries result in injury. And then guys are like, how does he do that? And those guys are somehow fine. But it does seem like there's a lot on the upper body there versus the lower half in Ryan Johnson's delivery. Does it not?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it seems like, I don't know. And you can't say like injury prone. It's just like, okay, it's very effort based. Like it takes a lot more effort than the majority of pitchers' deliveries.
Which, that can maybe affect the ability to hold velocity later in outings, things like that. But was not a huge issue for him this year, clearly, as he made those 12 starts, a fastball average in 93, 94. With that kind of arm side run, and there is that deception with the way that he slingshots the ball. And then I like the way that the cutter and slider work. So he's going to be a big league arm in some capacity. And I think it's been interesting to see the way that he's been able to maneuver through lineups despite really being mostly fastball, cutter, slider. And the fact that he kept righties at bay the way that he did. I think the big question, though, is how is he going to get lefties out, right? Because there's an 801 OPS against lefties this year, a 477 OPS against righties. And that's why I skew a little bit more towards the swingman, multi-inning reliever type.
Got you.
Number 5, Caden Dana. Dana is 11th round pick that got a lot of money in 2022. Pitched really well in the Southern League, where he was dominating there in 2024. Just kind of filling up the zone and just not really having too much concern about the long ball. And I think because of that, you saw really good numbers from a run prevention standpoint. And then naturally, you get to AAA in the PCL, it's not going to be as good. But I do think it was less about the environment and more about just the fact that he looked like a shell of himself in the beginning of the year. The stuff wasn't there the same way. The execution wasn't there the same way. And then towards the end of the season, I think the stuff has come back. And it was more about the fastball execution last year that I think made him really solid, because the fastball isn't great by like the metrics, but it's mid 90s and he was locating it well last year. The best pitch for him is clearly that slider, and he was executing that pitch really well last year, and it wasn't there for him in the early going this year. And then the fastball was just flatter and more over the middle than ever. It's been better through the finish of this year. What I like about Dana is he's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's 21 years old with a lot of innings already under his belt as a professional. And it just seems like he has a great chance of at least being that innings eater at the 5 spot. And he still has more time to develop as a 21-year-old.
So I can't stand how the Angels used Caden Dana this year. And I just want to highlight how they went about using him. It was a 3-1, and it's funny, like I was there for one of his 4 outings in the major league so far this year. He made an appearance for the Angels out of the bullpen, worked 3 innings of 2-run ball on April 4th against Cleveland. That's the second week of the season. And then he goes down to AAA Salt Lake for a while, for a month, actually a month and a half. He comes back up on May 24th against the Marlins. He goes 3 innings. One of his innings was a 35-pitch inning. Caden Dana, 3 innings, 3 runs, 4 walks. He came into a 3-1 game in the 7th inning. And then he goes to AAA for 3 months. And then he comes back in September and makes 2 starts at this point. What are they doing?
I don't know.
He upsets me as much, if not more, than Ryan Johnson. Caden Dana was one of the best pitchers in minor league baseball last year. And they are using him in a way that no other organization uses their top pitching prospects. It's unbelievable to me how they utilize guys. It makes 0 sense. In what world can this make any sense at all?
And it's put him in a tough spot, because I think it's put him more in the fight or flight where, okay, I got to go with what works if I'm getting up for the big league start here. And then I go back to AAA and it's like, well, I want to pitch my way back into an opportunity up there. So the focus is less on development and more on, how can I get by and get outs now? And that for Caden Dana is going to be fastball slider. And the fastball is average, the slider's plus. That's not going to work at the highest level consistently. The days where you're really executing, I think you can make it work. But the changeup has not progressed at all this year, and that was the pitch that he really needed. And I think it's because he hasn't really had a chance to develop it. Like, I would have liked to have seen him get runway as in throwing I guess triple X. He threw so much in double A last year, but just throw out there, and we don't care about the results, Caden. Like, just keep throwing that changeup, keep working on the delivery, and maybe try to find that curveball too. But instead, it's been, fastball slider and how can I get enough outs to get back up to the big leagues? And when I'm in the big leagues, just how can I get by here? And I just don't think that's the best thing for him long term in his age 21 season. And that's why the changeup this year, it just, if anything, it backed up a little bit. He had a 47.5% strike rate this year on that changeup. And a quarter of the pitches that he threw were never even close when he went to that changeup. So that's the frustrating part, because there's a world where if Caden Dana develops an average changeup and kind of gets back to where we saw him last year, where the execution was there, it's a really solid back end of the rotation starter who can eat a lot of innings. But this year, it hasn't totally been there. And the fact that they saw the command take a little bit of a step back this year, and maybe some of that might be nibbling too as well. It's just not a guy that I would want to ragdoll when the command is taking a little bit of a step back. Get a 69% strike rate on the fastball last year. This year, it's 64%. So it's just not as pinpoint as it was last year with the heater. And I think that's affected him a little bit as well. I still think great chance to be a good back end starter, but it's kind of despite the circumstances, right?
They've messed with too many guys. Like first it was Reed Detmers, then it was Aldegary and Caden Dana, then it was Ryan Johnson. They've messed with way too many guys, and it upsets me. So let's move on to the next guy.
Well, another guy that just got up to the big leagues, but I think honestly, this makes sense. I was hoping he'd get a shot at the end of this year, and I think he's earned it. Just got called up a couple days ago. Denzer Guzman, and this was a big reason why when I was texting you about the system, I'm like, there's a couple guys that I think are going to be solid big league pieces for them, and I think Guzman is that. Now, in what capacity? We'll see. This was a $2 million IFA guy in 2021 and wasn't good for a couple years in professional ball. But the good news is, like, these guys have so much time, and this is what I think has been a positive development in the Angels system is you've seen some of these IFA guys in the last year or two make a leap. So I don't know if there's been some developmental infrastructure adjusted or just happens to be, positive, just good circumstance of a couple guys at the same time. But regardless, Guzman looks like a guy that can fill a role for them as soon as next year. And obviously he's doing it right now at the big league level. Plate discipline is really impressive. I mean, to be 21 years old and kind of this breakout season and get up to AAA and continue to hold your own, I think is really impressive. Adding a little bit more power. You saw the ability to really pull the ball in the air. And that's what stands out to me too. The EVs are not crazy. He's still probably growing to a little bit more strength as he matures. He's still just 21 years old and has a little bit more room. But when you have a great approach, good enough bat to ball, and the ability to air pull really, really well, you're going to outslug those EVs. And that's exactly what he's done. Only a 34% ground ball rate, 33% ground ball rate, 17 homers, 30 doubles. The other thing that I was really encouraged by is I love the glove on the left side of the infield. He can get by and I think play an average short, but he could play a great third base. And the fact that he can play, the only reason I have shortstop / third base is because realistically he's just not going to play short with Neto there. But let's say Neto goes down. This is a guy that can play shortstop, and he has played shortstop in his first 2 big league games for that reason. So the fact that he can get by at shortstop and not even get by, I think play an average or with another year or two above average big league shortstop, he could be a plus defender at third. Now, is he going to slug the way that you generally want from third base? Maybe not right away, but I think it can come. And then he's got decent wheels too. I think this is a solid big league regular on the left side of the infield.
So a couple of things there. Denzer Guzman plays all the time. You look at his game totals in professional baseball, it is on par with really anybody else. And that is humongous for a third baseman for the LA Angels because they have been clamoring for a consistent piece at third base for quite some time, really ever since they paid Anthony Rendon. The other one, you say enough bat to ball. Do you ever feel like he's straddling that line of, there's too much whiff here? He does strike out a lot, and I know you really like the plate discipline.
Yeah, I think he's close to that, but at the same time, I get a little bit more patience when it's a 21-year-old in double and AAA and kind of a guy that broke out this year, right? And was really mostly playing it. I know it was double A last year, wasn't great, so it was second taste, but was aggressively kind of pushed too much, and then really didn't see. I think that strikeout rate jumped too much at the AAA level. And then if anything has cut it as the years progress. I think there's a case and a chance that he could swing and miss too much, but I just feel like with the plate discipline, he's going to get by enough. And I feel like he's only going to get better in that regard. And the operation seems simple enough. But I think there could be stretches where he's swinging and missing a little bit too much. But when you're running a chase at 20% and recognizing spin the way that he does and rarely expand against the elevated fastball, I just think this guy's going to maneuver enough to make that strikeout rate, palatable at the 25% range.
Cool.
The defense, I think, is going to allow him to accumulate a lot of WAR too. And do you have any, how many bags he had this year? Jeez.
He was 14 for 17 in the stolen base department. He was 8 for 11 in AA, and then 36 games in AAA was 6 for 6. So that's
not bad. I mean, that's a part of his game. So it's nothing jumps off the page, but if he's, I think what you're looking at on the higher end here is the third baseman who's an above average defender who can slide over to short when you need, or second base when you need, who can provide 20 homers, I think, if it all comes together, but let's say 15 to be conservative, provide 15 bags, get on base at a decent clip, and he's going to strike out 25% of the time. That's a guy that could easily get to 3 WAR. I think in good years, maybe, you could push to 3.5. I don't think that's crazy at all.
No.
Number 3, Nelson Rada. Rada is a guy that was very popular, I think, as like a breakout candidate when the Angels just really aggressively pushed him to Double-A. And I just don't think he was ready, especially in that environment where it is not easy to hit, especially for a contact-oriented hitter. They pushed him there like his age 18 season, and Double-A, he put up an 89 WRC plus in the Southern League in 2024. He repeated there this year. In the 93 games, looked significantly better, albeit he did not slug much at all, but the bat to ball was significantly better. The approach was significantly better. They brought him up to AAA in his age 19 season, not long after that, and more of the same there. And then you saw the slug shine through a little bit more because of the PCL bump. Now, this is a guaranteed big leaguer. It's just going to be in what capacity, because the glove is plus in center. He's going to put the ball in play, and the plate discipline is plus. But if it's 20 power, there's a question of how much impact is going to be there to be a regular. But when you're a plus runner with plus defense in center field, like at worst, he's a fourth outfielder. And I think it's important. Like, he's going to be a prospect fatigue guy probably, because he just turned 20 years old a few weeks ago. And he's now been in the upper minors for 2 years. But he's just, I feel like, a guarantee to at least be a fourth outfielder. The question is just going to be, can he cut down on a 57% ground ball rate? Can he hit the ball a little bit harder, improve on a 99 mile per hour EV90, all those little things. But he's going to put the ball in play, and he's going to get on base, and he's going to defend and run.
Yeah, and he's been really, really good this year. Like, there is a case that we were talking about, possible minor league players of the year in each organization. There is a case based on age to level and what he's done from a WRC plus perspective, that he has been the best offensive performer in the LA Angels organization this year, which is amazing to think about, especially when he's, repeating the upper minors right now. But no, I mean, you laid it out perfectly there. Like, the fact that this guy has made the correction makes you think incredibly quick learner. For me, it's a lot like another former Angel prospect, Edgar Caro. Remember when Caro first got to Double-A and it was terrible? And then all of a sudden he kicks it into high gear. And it's good. And now Caro looks like a piece in the big leagues moving forward. So
and the tough part is he's not going to have that power uptick that Caro had. But I think it's a similar, progression where it's, hey, we were fine with him struggling in Double-A. And I know that the Angels, they love their staff there, and that was probably a big reason why Rada was sent there. And it worked with Caro in his development, right? It just required a little bit more patience. And I think you can say that it did. Theoretically, it looks like it could be working with Rada. Why let him just go have elite plate discipline in high A, walk a ton, and just yawn in his at-bats because he's just so advanced compared to his competition, instead of challenging him in Double-A where he struggled? I don't hate that progression there. I think it makes sense. But I think it resulted in, I think, just the prospect world, like a lot of people I saw on social media, like really, really excited about him. They should be excited about him, but I think the ceiling floor got kind of misconstrued as, an 18-year-old getting to Double-A because of how quick he was getting there. I don't know if there's enough impact to be a regular. If he really, really hits, then he can be a regular. Like, if that hit tool is plus, I think he can be. But at the very least, I think you've got a guy here that is a fourth outfielder and has a great chance of at least being a second division regular. And I know will be in the fold for the Angels next year. It also helps his case that he's good in left-on-left matchups.
Yep.
Number 2, the number 2 overall pick in the 2025 draft. A surprising pick, but it doesn't mean he's not a good arm, and I think he is a very solid arm. Tyler Bremner, right-hander from UC Santa Barbara. Bremner, it's probably the best changeup in the draft. And it's a fastball that has some run and ride. And then it's, what's the third pitch? That's the question. But Bremner has good command. And I think that's what the Angels were looking at here is, okay, we already have one clear plus big league pitch. And we have a fastball that's, at least big league average. Now, we also have above average command here. This is a guy that we can move quickly. Just what can we do to maybe supplement the arsenal to make it translate at the highest level? Because you look at a Caden Dana, right? Fastball with a plus secondary, and he's stalling out a little bit here. Yeah. This is where with Bremner, it's going to be so important to find that third pitch because the slider is just not there yet. That's going to be the thing to monitor. But the fastball average 95. I am a little bit concerned that he could lose some carry on that fastball when he goes from the college ball to, just a professional baseball. Generally, that's how it goes. And he's kind of a run and ride guy. But regardless, it still looks like it's going to be an above average heater. And then that 70 grade changeup. It's just, what is that third pitch going to be? And how fast can he learn it?
I've had a couple of good conversations with guys when it comes to adjusting to new baseballs. And it really does seem like they feel like there is work to do to get the same characteristics back in a different baseball. Like there is a world where Tyler Bremner this offseason figures out a way to throw a professional baseball and get identical characteristics to what he did in college. Now, is it harder? Yes. Can you also allocate 100% of your time and energy every day into doing it? Yes. That is the life of a professional baseball player. And there are ways that good organizations can help you improve shapes or get back to shapes that are very good. So you've got a lot of confidence in a guy like Bremner figuring out how to keep those same characteristics with a different baseball. At least I do. And man, like he does seem like, I don't want to say the safest arm in the draft. He was, pitcher 1 in the draft, but he's pretty darn safe because you're getting strikes. Like, I don't know. I was just thinking, okay, if a college pitcher is going to go 2, why wasn't it Jamie Arnold? Bremner, I guess, in a certain sense, is a little bit safer because you're getting a 5 at worst and maybe a 3 at best versus Arnold could be a 2 in Major League Baseball, but he could also turn into a relief arm.
Yeah, exactly. And then we just wrote up Arnold and updated. We're updating the ALS, as I alluded to. The athletics system is already updated now. And with Arnold, like the fastball got hit pretty hard this year, and you still feel good about it potentially being a better pitch and how he can potentially get a little bit better with the command and the shape and all that good stuff. But like Bremner, it's going to be an average big league hitter at least, and has a really good chance to at least be above average with the execution to go with it. So that's why you look at that combo and you feel good about it. And you can't really teach the changeup that Bremner has and the feel for it. 67% strike rate on that changeup while being able to just dot it, which is with crazy arm side, like fade to it. Opponents hit 160 against it. Yeah. Like that's a nasty pitch. And then I love the way the 4-seamer played at the top. Like he got 30% chase at the top of this, or 30% chase on the fastball this past year, most of it at the top of the zone. And I agree with you. Like there is a chance that he could lose some of that carry, but this is a guy that I think a big reason why the Angels loved him. Fantastic makeup. You hear nothing but great things about Bremner, and has the work ethic to do it, the track record of throwing strikes. I'm going to bet on him being a big league starter. I don't think there's much question about that. It's just how good, and it's going to come down to what that fastball looks like, and then what's the third pitch. And I think the latter is even more important.
Yeah.
Number 1, still going stuff here. And I know people probably have Bremner over this guy, but we're projecting big league starters here or just big league arms. And I'm still going to roll with the stuff of George Klassen, and feel free to push back. Like, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I think Klassen has had one of the flukiest years I've seen from a starter in a while. I really think the numbers, and I know it's such a cop-out, the numbers don't indicate what he really did this year. I really do believe that with Klassen. And he had a weird year that included a comebacker off his head. And it kept him out for a couple weeks. And that'll mess with you, man. It's like, it'll mess with you. I mean, when I was 14 years old, I took one back. I had way less velocity than that. And I'd sit and watch games on the TV. And if a ball went back towards like the camera on the TV, I was jumping on my couch after I got the concussion from the comebacker. Now I can't imagine with the velocity and then on the mound, like it could be for a guy like Klassen. So I think that was part of it. And then I just think he got BABIP'd and just had some bad luck. I mean, you look at a 5.31 ERA and like a 3.3 FIP. But the difference here for Klassen is you got a plus heater, you got a 70 grade slider, and you have an above average curveball. So I like that. Like I feel like the range of outcomes are so much higher. Whereas if in the downside of Bremner stalling out, you're looking at, a 5-starter and, just a guy that may not miss a ton of bats. Like, then you do the classic comparison of, well, is a back end starter more valuable than a potentially really good high leverage reliever? I'd argue no. And that's why I think with the backside here of what could happen with Klassen if he doesn't stick in the rotation, this guy in short spurts, Jack, I think it would be diabolical. Like he would be a closer potentially.
Yeah, I think pitch by pitch, like I'm doing the Vince Carter dunk contest thing, like it's over. There's no contest between Klassen and Bremner. So I side with you entirely. Like this guy's stuff, if you haven't gotten an opportunity to just watch a Klassen start, you should do that because it is as comical a stuff as there is in minor league baseball. There's some guys that jump out and it's like, okay, when Mizorowski was in the minor leagues, it was just a little different. But in terms of tier 2, in terms of guys that aren't throwing 100 miles an hour, like Klassen is right there based on what he can do with the fastball, which, by the way, can flirt with 100 at points. Mm-hmm. And then also the slider. If you haven't seen the slider off of 97, I mean, it is downright nasty. I'm not going to push back whatsoever because if this guy is remotely near the strike zone, he walked 4 hitters per 9 this year. That's fine by me. He can be a good major league starter walking 4 hitters per 9 because the stuff is comical. And if he's landing it in the strike zone enough and good parts of the strike zone, there are very few guys that can barrel up something that George Klassen throws.
It's just kind of the Klassen versus Klassen thing. And then there's some days where he just wasn't locating the breaking balls, goes fastball heavy. And that's where you saw those like 6-7 earned run outings. But the last 4 starts of the year for him at AA, 1.17 ERA, 33% K rate, 3 earned runs in 23 innings. And just kind of going through it, there's another guy, 97 mile an hour fastball at the top, then also 97 mile an hour sinker that he'll run to get ground balls and mix in at the bottom. This power slider, like 90, that opponents hit 200 against with a 560 OPS. And then this really sharp, hard curveball at 85 that opponents hit 190 against with a 590 OPS. So when you have those 2 distinct shaped curveballs or breaking balls, and I got to see them behind home plate when I wanted to cover one of his starts from his arm action, it's gross, man. And I mean, we've seen a lot of guys that the run prevention numbers aren't totally there in the minors, and then it just kind of clicks in the big leagues. But I like the way that he finished the year, and I just think the upside is so much more immense. And then even the fallback, you put this guy in the pen, it could be closer stuff. So also a reminder that they acquired him for Carlos Estevez. And it's so funny because here's your top prospect, along with Aldegari, who's at least, a guy that's roughly in the top 15. And that's who they got for trading Carlos Estevez. And now I know Estevez has been good for the Royals, but Estevez, and that's not even who they traded him to, right? They traded him to the Phillies.
Right.
That's one of the best trades that they've made in a little while. I think, and it'll reap rewards for them. And it's given them their top pitching prospect and, probably one of their top, if not their top left-handed pitching prospect. And they never do it. They just never do it. For whatever reason, they did it this one time, and they did a great job. Like we said it at the time. Wow, Klassen and Aldegari, like great return for them for a reliever.
Yeah.
And then they won't do it anymore. Like we see them just continue to hold on to their, to their assets while they sit in 75 wins or so. That's the frustrating part for me because this was a great trade. And I think Klassen's going to be a part of their team next year.
Seems like it, man. And listen, like they're still without a postseason berth since Trout's rookie year? Come on.
Yeah. So hopefully some of these guys can help soon. And several of them are at the top of the minor leagues and probably will be helping them next year. It's just, is it enough? We'll see. That'll do it for this episode. We've got Astros top prospects next time around. And then we'll be continuing to focus on updating all of the systems. Again, reminder that if you click through the team top prospect lists, we've got all of the AL West updated except for the Rangers, and that's in progress right now. So that should be done by the end of the week. And then we'll be moving on to each division at a time. And then we'll have those top prospect rankings. We'll probably do, or the farm system rankings. We'll do a Arizona Fall League preview coming up sooner rather than later as well, because a lot of fun players going out there. Very excited about that. But as always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you all tomorrow.